Radio journalist Elena Cruz arrived before sunset alone. The tourists had vanished along Xochimilco's southern canals. Each disappearance followed a woman's distant midnight crying. Elena suspected the recordings contained something deliberately hidden. Every captured sob ended with her own surname. The boatman, Mateo Rojas, refused every generous payment offered. He said the canals remembered names better than families. Elena played the tape, and Mateo immediately paled. The crying woman was calling from the forbidden channel. Mateo finally agreed after Elena revealed her grandmother's pendant. Mateo recognized it from an abandoned chapel shrine. They launched as evening bells faded behind Mexico City. The fog gathered, although the warm night remained completely windless. Their lantern reflected twice across the motionless black water. The second reflection moved before Mateo raised his pole. Elena's recorder captured footsteps beneath the wooden boat. A white figure appeared between curtains of reeds. She carried 2 folded paper boats against her chest. Lucia raised one hand, warning them away silently. Then, a child's laugh sounded beyond her shoulder. Elena saw a small boat drifting without passengers. The missing tourists' belongings floated beneath the empty seats. Lucia vanished when a distant bronze bell rang. The canal narrowed toward an island absent from maps. The ruined chapel leaned above roots and dark water. Elena's pendant pulled toward the chapel like magnetized silver. Those prints ended before a dry stone baptism basin. Water suddenly filled it without spilling over edges. The surface showed children sleeping inside drifting boats. Among them, Elena recognized her missing younger cousin. He had disappeared near these canals 18 years earlier. Lucia peered behind Elena, weeping without moving lips. Her tears became silver threads leading beneath the chapel. Mateo uncovered a trapdoor sealed by river mud. Below weighted shelves packed with rusted name plaques. One plaque carried Elena's grandmother's secret childhood nickname. Lamp ignited, revealing elderly Sister Inez nearby. Inez explained Lucia never drowned her own children. That accusation protected a colonial magistrate named Alvarado. He erased indigenous children from baptism and property records. Families without recorded names lost land and legal protection. Liza secretly copied every stolen identity onto silver bells. Alvarado discovered her work and flooded the courthouse cells. He imprisoned witnesses, including Lucia's 2 young sons. Lucia entered the flood trying desperately to save them. Alvarado survived by sealing himself inside the archive. His curse transformed grief into the famous murderous legend. Lucia's crying actually warned children before Canals opened. The missing tourists had followed Alvarado's borrowed child voices. Black reeds erupted through windows and wrapped the walls. Outside, dozens of small boats entered the channel. Weeping children sat upright inside each drifting vessel. The tall masked magistrate stood upon the central boat. Don Alvarado wore chains strung with stolen name plaques. He raised his gavel, and every parent stopped moving. Elena's recorder announced a verdict using her own voice. The children were declared nameless before midnight's final bell. Inez said the silver bells remained beneath drowned courtrooms. Returning those names could collapse Alvarado's false legend. Mateo opened an old map stitched inside his poncho. It revealed stone stairs descending below the black whirlpool. Lucia offered Elena one paper boat containing candlelight. The flame would survive only while Elena remembered truth. They entered the water as Alvarado's gavel struck again. The canal opened around them like folding black glass. Elena heard her grandmother singing beyond submerged doors. The voice begged Elena to abandon strangers and return. She answered with Lucia's true history instead of following. The false grandmother dissolved into drifting black reeds. At the bottom stood Alvarado's perfectly preserved courthouse. The ghostly clerk stamped blank pages behind cracked desks. Each stamp removed another face from family photographs above. Mateo found the tourists seated inside witness benches. Their eyes remained open, but their memories were absent. Alvarado invited Elena toward the magistrate's raised platform. He offered worldwide fame for repeating Lucia's accusation. For one moment, her paper boat flame nearly died. Lucia placed both paper boats beside the prisoners. They unfolded into memories of her frightened sons. Elena rejected Alvarado and smashed the speaking recorder. Without her voice, his courtroom lights flickered violently. Mateo struck the hanging chains with his wooden pole. Hundreds of stolen plaques scattered across the flooded floor. Blaze located the first silver bell beneath records. Elena rang it while speaking the engraved name clearly. The one sleeping child awakened inside the canal above. They rang bell after bell through rising darkness. Every sound restored a face within forgotten photographs. Alvarado's brass mask cracked beneath the returning names. Lucia found two final bells tangled around his neck. They carried her sons' names and unfinished lullabies. She rang both bells and the courthouse doors opened. The tourists remembered themselves and fled toward the stairs. Elena placed her grandmother's pendant inside his broken mask. The river lily burned brighter than the courtroom lamps. Alvarado collapsed into blank plaques and rotting black reeds. Lucia carried her son's memories through the open doorway. The courthouse folded inward as water reclaimed every chamber. Elena, Mateo, and Inez reached the chapel before dawn. Awakened children returned aboard boats, guided by white lilies. Their parents remembered every missing name at once. The three tourists emerged confused but completely unharmed. Lucia stood across the water without crying anymore. She released two paper boats beneath the brightening sky. Both boats became boys running toward her silhouette. Then, all three figures dissolved among silver morning mist. Elena broadcast Lucia's true story without sensational claims. Officials restored erased names inside local historical records. Mateo reopened the southern channel only during daylight. Inez placed the recovered bells within the chapel shrine. Elena kept one silent tape inside her apartment drawer. Later, heavy fog covered Mexico City unexpectedly. Every radio frequency began broadcasting quiet river water. Elena's sealed tape turned by itself inside darkness. The woman cried once, using Elena's perfect voice. The final whisper called another journalist's hidden surname. Outside, two paper boats waited beneath Elena's window. Across their folded sides appeared fresh silver river lilies. Far away, an unknown canal opened before midnight. Lucia's warning had ended, but the river continued listening. Across the world, people have always told stories about spirits, shadows, and things that refuse to disappear. Some legends are born from grief, while others grow from fear. Sometimes a ghost story survives longer than the people who first whispered it. Tonight we travel through some of the most famous ghost stories in the world. Not to prove they are real, but to understand why they never disappear. Our first story begins in Europe, where castles and cold corridors have long been filled with mystery. There, people whisper about a white figure that appears and vanishes as if it were never there. It's the legend of the White Lady, one of Europe's most famous ghosts. From France to Germany and beyond, the figure appears in many different versions. Yet they almost always share the same themes: sorrow, waiting, and a silent warning. Many versions say the White Lady is the spirit of a woman who died in grief. Some say she was betrayed, some say she lost the one she loved, and others say she was trapped inside the castle. People believe she often appeared before major family tragedies or dramatic events. That is why the White Lady became more than a ghost, she became an omen. Whether real or not, her presence made every castle corridor feel more haunted. Leaving Europe, we travel to Mexico, where a cry in the night has haunted generations. They call her La Llorona, the weeping woman. Legend says she was once a mother who, in despair, caused a tragedy that could never be undone. Afterward, her spirit wandered endlessly, crying out for her children. Many parents used the story to warn children not to wander out at night. That is what makes La Llorona so powerful. She is both a ghost and a warning. Her cry is not described as anger, but as grief that never ends. Some claim to have seen her near lonely roads beside rivers, canals, or lakes. Though the story has many versions, the image of the weeping mother remains alive across Latin American culture. From Mexico, we move to Japan, where a modern urban legend has unsettled countless people. She is Kuchisake-onna, the woman with the slit mouth. Legend says she appears at night and asks a simple question. Am I beautiful is the question that begins the horror. In the legend, the wrong answer leads to frightening consequences. Its simple question helped the legend spread quickly among Japanese students. Kuchisake-onna is a classic example of how urban legends evolve in modern society. The fear does not need castles or forests. Sometimes it lives on familiar streets. Leaving Japan, we arrive in the United States, where a Tennessee home became linked to the famous Bell Witch. Unlike many ghosts that are merely seen, the Bell Witch was said to speak and torment the Bell family. The stories describe knocks, whispers, and strange disturbances inside the house. The Bell Witch stands out because it is tied to a specific place and family in American folklore. The tale gradually expanded from a local rumor into a national legend. What makes the Bell Witch memorable is not just the haunting, but the feeling that home itself is no longer safe. When the place meant to shelter you becomes the source of fear, the ghost story becomes personal. Next comes Ireland, where the deathly cry of the banshee became a symbol of tragedy. The banshee does not always attack. Her terrifying power lies in her cry. Legend says that when someone in a family is near death, the banshee begins to wail. That makes the banshee a messenger of fate, not just a wandering ghost. The deepest fear in this story lies not in her form, but in what the cry announces. The banshee shows that sometimes the true fear is not the ghost, but the loss approaching behind it. From Ireland, we move to Southeast Asia, where the legend of Pontianak remains deeply alive. Pontianak is often described as a female spirit appearing at night, linked to eerie laughter or strange sounds. Many tellings, she belongs to lonely roads and tree-filled places where fear grows easily. It stands out how this legend reflects very ordinary fears: darkness, isolation, and vulnerability. When everyday fear meets collective imagination, ghost legends become durable. Now we move out to sea, where another ghost chin lives in fog and salt wind. There's the Flying Dutchman, the most famous ghost ship in maritime legend. Sailors say the ship is doomed to sail forever, unable to make port. Those who see it often take it as a bad omen at sea. Unlike ghosts tied to homes or families, the Flying Dutchman belongs to the fear of the sea. It represents the feeling that the sea follows its own laws, beyond human control. Looking back, each culture seems to shape its own kind of ghost. Yet beneath their differences, they all speak about deeply human fears. Fear of losing loved ones, fear of abandonment, fear of darkness, and fear of the unexplained. Because they touch real emotions, ghost stories survive across generations. Many ghost stories also function as warnings or moral lessons. Some stories protect children from danger, while others remind adults that actions carry consequences. And some stories survive simply because humans enjoy being frightened from a place of safety. The more mysterious and unprovable a tale is, the more room imagination has to fill the gaps. That is why each generation retells the same story in a slightly different way. Famous ghost stories do not have to be real to have real influence. They travel into books, films, television, and even modern online rumors. Whatever the format, they still perform an old function, making us pause and wonder what hides in the dark. Perhaps the true fascination of ghost stories lies not in the ghost, but in the darkness inside us. They reflect what we fear, what we regret, and what we cannot control. That is why a famous ghost story often behaves more like a mirror than a monster. The longer we look, the more it reveals about us and the world around us. Some stories may have begun with real events and then changed over time. Others may simply be perfect creations of collective imagination. Either way, they help us understand the cultures from which they emerged. A ghost in a European castle is different from one on a Mexican river or in a foggy sea. Each place gives its fear a different shape. And perhaps that is why ghost stories never truly disappear. As long as humans still fear, regret, and wonder, whispers will remain in the dark. And somewhere, perhaps right now, a new ghost story is already being told.
On his first night in apartment 6B, Aaron heard footsteps directly above the ceiling. The strange part was that his apartment was on the top floor. The footsteps crossed from the living room to the bedroom, then stopped directly above him. 3 knocks sounded from above, slow and deliberate like a greeting. Aaron knocked back once, hoping to prove it was only old plumbing. From above, a knock answered from the exact spot beneath his hand. The next morning, the manager said the roof held only water tanks and vents. But when Aaron mentioned the knocking, Mr. Vail's smile disappeared. He warned Aaron never to open his apartment door after 3 in the morning. On the second night, the footsteps returned at exactly 3:13 a.m. This time, the footsteps were not above him. They were moving through the hallway. The sound stopped outside the front door of apartment 6B. 3 knocks came from the other side. Then a child's voice called Aaron by name. He looked through the peephole, but the hallway was completely empty. When he turned around, an old envelope lay in the middle of the living room. Inside was a drawing of a little girl standing before a door marked 7. In the corner was a clock without hands and 3 small circles. Aaron decided to inspect the emergency stairs before sunrise. At the end of the 6th floor stairs, he found a new flight leading upward. The wall that once blocked the way had vanished, revealing a 7th floor. The corridor mirrored the 6th floor, but everything looked decades older. The doors began with 7A and ended at one door with no number. A pair of dusty children's shoes waited before it. Three knocks came from inside, identical to those above his ceiling. A girl named Mina appeared behind him at the far end of the corridor. She told him never to answer the third set of knocks. According to Mina, the 7th floor appears only to people the building is about to forget. The unnumbered door was where the building kept everyone it had erased. To survive, Aaron had to leave the 7th floor before the clock reached 3:13 again. Aaron ran back to the stairs, but found only a solid wall. Mina said the exit opens only when the chosen person remembers what the building wants erased. Among them, Aaron found a photograph of himself moving in years ago. The back showed today's date, but the year had been scratched away. Vale appeared at the far end carrying a ring of black keys. He said the building needed one living person to keep the 7th floor alive. Mina had been the previous keeper until Aaron was chosen. If Aaron stayed, Mina would be returned to the world. Mina warned Aaron not to believe him. The building had never returned anyone. The unnumbered door began opening from within. Beyond it was not a room, but countless apartments stacked inside one another. Each apartment held a tenant erased from the world's memory. Aaron saw his mother inside one room, even though she was still alive. The building used memories to lure its chosen victims inside. Vale locked the corridor door behind them. Aaron remembered the first knock and realized it came from his future self. If trapped, he would become the source of every footstep he had heard. The only way to break the loop was to create a sound that had never happened. Aaron pulled an ancient fire alarm mounted on the 7th floor wall. The alarm rang and the entire corridor began to shake. The erased tenant stepped out and finally saw Mr. The ring of black keys began cracking in his hand. Mina led Aaron through the corridor as the stairwell wall reopened. Vale called Aaron's name and the doors tried pulling him back. Aaron covered his ears and focused only on the fire alarm. Mina stopped at the final step of the 7th floor. She could not cross because her name had been erased for too long. Aaron wrote Mina's name on the old drawing using ink from his pen. The drawing became proof that the world still remembered her. Together they crossed before the 7th floor collapsed. They returned to the 6th floor as the clock changed to 3:14. Mina now looked like an ordinary girl, no longer transparent. But Aaron's key no longer opened apartment 6B. Another family was sleeping inside. Vale had vanished from the manager's desk. The building records contained neither Aaron nor Mina. They left the building before dawn and never returned. Aaron helped Mina find the family that had believed her missing for years. For several weeks, every mysterious knock stopped. Then one night, Aaron heard 3 knocks from inside the wardrobe. When he opened it, he found only the coat he had left in apartment 6B. Inside the pocket was one of Mr. Vail's black keys. The key turned by itself and pointed toward the wall. The outline of a door began appearing on the wall. Behind it was the 7th floor corridor, now completely empty. At the far end, the new manager's plaque showed Aaron's face. Mina realized the building had not been destroyed. It had only chosen a new keeper. Aaron threw the key into the corridor and slammed the door shut. But the next morning, the same key was back in his pocket. And elsewhere in the city, someone began hearing footsteps above the ceiling. Some trains appear on every schedule, while others should never arrive anywhere at all. Kenji, a tired 29-year-old office worker, reached the station after another late shift. He missed the final train by seconds, and the station closed around him. Heavy rain and a dying phone forced Kenji to remain inside until morning. While waiting, he remembered the younger sister he had lost many years earlier. He often imagined her voice, but tonight it came from the unlit tunnel. The platform lights flickered as freezing wind carried a deep metallic groan. A silver-gray train without any number slowly emerged from the darkness. Black windows reflected Kenji while broken symbols flickered above, then vanished. The empty doors opened, and Kenji hesitated before the silent carriage. A warning bell sounded, and he entered just before the doors closed. Dust filled the carriage, where silent passengers guarded strange personal belongings. Their clothes came from different decades, yet none answered Kenji's question. An impossibly tall conductor appeared, hiding a completely blank face beneath his hat. He offered a blank ticket and warned Kenji never to leave at Platform 0. The punch clicked, darkness fell, and the faceless conductor disappeared without leaving a mark. A pale schoolgirl now sat across from Kenji on the previously empty seat. She called herself Aiko and quietly said he should never have boarded. Kenji asked their destination, but Aiko said the passengers had forgotten home. The train passed empty stations, including one filled with hundreds of open umbrellas. At the next station, rows of abandoned shoes faced the railway tracks. A missing person tag marked one suitcase, while an old family photograph faded nearby. Aiko revealed that every passenger had once disappeared from the outside world. The train collected people forgotten, misplaced, or slowly erased from living memory. Their journey ended at Platform 0, where forgotten names waited without owners. Flickering glass reflected Kenji's sister, smiling and calling him exactly as before. Aiko seized his sleeve and warned him not to answer the familiar voice. The train slowed through darkness as weak yellow lamps emerged inside the fog. Handless clocks watched as the doors opened before mountains of abandoned luggage. Beneath one yellow lamp, Kenji's sister waited in her familiar dress. She claimed she had waited for years and begged him to step outside. Kenji knew she might be false, yet grief pulled him from the carriage. As the doors closed, his sister dissolved into pale golden smoke before him. Aiko followed him down while the ghost train slowly departed into darkness. She said Kenji must recover his name before the train returned or be forgotten. The conductor's punch echoed behind them, and each flicker brought him closer. Kenji and Aiko fled into a maze of corridors beneath the station. Fading portraits covered the walls, while locked rooms whispered names of lost loved ones. Aiko led Kenji into a luggage archive larger than the entire station. Every suitcase preserved one final fragment of somebody the world had forgotten. Kenji searched thousands of white tags, yet none of them carried his name. While they searched, Aiko remembered running away from home after an argument. Her family vanished from reach, and Platform Zero completed the world's forgetting. Slow footsteps entered the archive, and each blackout placed the conductor nearer. Aiko pulled Kenji through a narrow passage toward a wall of hanging tags. Among thousands of old labels, a newly written tag bearing Kenji's name glowed. Kenji tore it free, and the entire underground station began violently shaking. From the darkness, the ticket punch snapped repeatedly like a merciless countdown. Aiko led Kenji through a service tunnel lined with pulsing red lights. The conductor stopped walking and appeared beneath each light whenever darkness passed. They reached an abandoned control room and saw the ghost train returning. The platform gate remained locked, and the ancient control panel was completely dead. Aiko touched the panel and awakened it using her final surviving memory. The gate opened, but Aiko's transparent body began fading faster than before. Kenji held her hand and begged her to leave the station with him. Aiko showed him a blank tag where every trace of her name had vanished. She could not leave because the outside world had forgotten her too completely. The conductor appeared at the corridor's end and raised his metal punch. Aiko pushed Kenji through the gate, then locked herself on the other side. Smiling for the first time, she asked Kenji to remember her name. The doors opened and Kenji entered as every station light suddenly died. When the lights returned, both Aiko and the faceless conductor had disappeared. Kenji held his name tag tightly until city lights returned beyond the windows. Before dawn, the ghost train stopped where his terrible journey had begun. The moment Kenji stepped outside, the train vanished into the empty tunnel. At home, his own key no longer opened the familiar apartment door. His mother answered and stared at Kenji as if he were a stranger. At work, his identification failed, and another employee occupied his desk. Nobody remembered Kenji or believed he had ever worked there beside them. Every family photograph on his phone had completely erased Kenji from the image. Only one childhood picture remained, with Aiko now standing behind the siblings. That evening, Kenji returned to the station seeking proof of the impossible journey. Near the closed platform, he discovered a wall covered with missing person photographs. A new photograph showed Kenji wearing the same coat and scarf from last night. Beneath it appeared his disappearance date, although he stood directly before the board. From the tunnel, metallic wheels began echoing through the station once again. The lights flickered, and a young woman's voice softly whispered Kenji's name. This time, he immediately knew the voice did not belong to his sister. Aiko called from behind the black window of the returning ghost train. In her pale hand, a white ticket now clearly carried Kenji's name. Ashcroft Apartments looked ordinary by daylight, but its corridors changed after midnight. Ethan Vale began another overnight maintenance shift beneath gathering storm clouds. Elderly Mrs. Bell warned him again about footsteps behind apartment 404. Official floor plans skipped directly from apartment 403 to apartment 405. Residents sometimes heard a telephone ringing inside the missing space at night. Ethan blamed old pipes, loose walls, and the building's exhausted wiring system. At exactly 2:04, every hallway clock stopped without losing power once. The fourth floor camera filled with static, then revealed one additional doorway. Ethan saw his reflection waiting there before he had even gone upstairs. Carrying flashlight and keys, Ethan entered the silent elevator completely alone. The elevator opened onto a corridor where every ordinary sound had disappeared. Between 403 and 405, the wallpaper felt colder than winter glass. A telephone rang behind the wall, stopping whenever Ethan held his breath. One brass key on Ethan's ring began trembling toward the hidden wall. A dark door outline slowly surfaced beneath the faded floral wallpaper. A tarnished brass plate appeared, carrying the forbidden number 404 clearly. Through the peephole, Ethan saw a woman standing inside endless darkness. The woman raised one brass key and silently formed the name Evelyn. The hidden door unlocked itself before Ethan could choose to leave. Ethan followed Evelyn beyond the doorway as the real corridor vanished behind. An endless hallway stretched forward beneath lamps that breathed like sleeping lungs. Dozens of doors carried blank plates where apartment numbers should have been. Behind one door, a birthday dinner repeated without anyone remembering names. Another room replayed a farewell that never reached its intended destination. Whispers traveled through the walls, asking Ethan to remember forgotten tenants. Evelyn crossed beneath every lamp, yet cast no shadow across the carpet. A red telephone waited alone on a table beside the silent wallpaper. When Ethan answered, his own voice warned him never to trust Evelyn. Evelyn opened her palm, revealing the same key from Ethan's ring. She explained that one key remained unfinished when she disappeared decades earlier. The hallway belonged to Mr. Gray, a landlord without any human face. Mr. Gray recorded every tenant inside a black leather ledger nightly. Whenever a name faded outside, its apartment entered this hidden corridor. Evelyn discovered the ledger, so Gray removed her from every living memory. Apartment 404 preserved Evelyn's final night at exactly 2-4, forever unchanged. At the corridor's end, a new blank door slowly formed for Ethan. Ethan's reflection appeared inside that room, knocking from the opposite side. Evelyn said 4 service bell rings could reopen the real 4th-floor corridor. The unfinished key must unlock mailbox 404 before the 4th ring ended. To finish it, they needed Gray's original tenant file from archives. The staircase descended farther than Ashcroft's 12 floors could ever contain. Below waited an archive packed with ledgers, keys, and forgotten photographs. Ethan found Evelyn's file, but every page showed another woman's portrait. Only one photograph showed Evelyn beside mailbox 404 holding the unfinished key. Ethan copied the missing pattern onto brass using his maintenance tool. Every ledger opened at once as Mr. Gray entered the archive. Gray's ledger pulled Evelyn's name from the photograph into its pages. Without her name, Evelyn began dissolving into pale dust and rain. Ethan quickly seized the ledger page carrying Evelyn's nearly vanished name. The archive lights failed, and Gray appeared closer after every returning flash. Ethan and Evelyn fled between shelves while forgotten photographs whispered behind them. Every exit became another archive doorway whenever Ethan reached for its handle. Evelyn spotted a real exit reflected inside a cracked standing mirror. They entered the mirror's doorway, while Gray remained trapped outside its reflection. The mirror opened into a forgotten office containing Ashcroft's brass service bell. Ethan rang once, causing every hidden door to tremble throughout the hallway. The second ring restored numbers onto doors belonging to remembered tenants. The third ring awakened trapped residents who opened their doors together. Before the 4th ring, Mr. Gray emerged silently from Ethan's reflection. Gray placed his ledger over the bell, sealing every sound inside. Freed residents surrounded Gray, repeating their own names until walls shook. Ethan pressed Evelyn's torn ledger page against the completed brass key. The finished key unlocked Gray's ledger, releasing names trapped across generations. Without stolen names, the endless hallway folded inward like collapsing paper. Ethan and Evelyn ran toward apartment 404 as walls closed behind. Inside 404, every frozen clock restarted and pointed toward the lobby. The apartment door opened directly into Ashcroft's empty lobby before dawn. A new mailbox labeled 404 appeared between the old brass compartments. Ethan turned the key as Evelyn rang the fourth service bell. Every released name returned to photographs, records, and living memories upstairs. Evelyn became fully visible as morning light reached her forgotten face. She thanked Ethan, then faded peacefully beside the open mailbox 404. Residents emerged upstairs, suddenly remembering neighbors missing for many forgotten years. Mrs. Bell showed Ethan a staff photograph dated 39 years earlier. Standing beside Evelyn in that photograph was Ethan wearing his current uniform. The building ledger now listed Ethan as caretaker since 1987 without interruption. Security footage showed Ethan entering 404, but only Evelyn returned downstairs. Another Ethan already sat behind him, calmly holding Gray's black ledger. The seated double raised his head as every facial feature slowly vanished. Upstairs, a new door appeared between 403 and 405, labeled Ethan. Mara started another overnight security shift inside the aging apartment tower. Official plans showed only 3 basement levels beneath the 40-story building. After midnight, the elevator panel sometimes illuminated a hidden B4 button. Mara initially blamed faulty wiring and documented every strange occurrence carefully. Security footage showed former residents entering long after their recorded deaths. None of those figures ever appeared leaving the elevator on another floor. One stormy night, rain covered the lobby windows with trembling reflections. Mara saw a small boy standing alone inside the open elevator. She recognized Eli from a missing child notice displayed near the mailboxes. Eli whispered that his mother still waited somewhere beneath basement 3. Mara entered only to guide the frightened child safely back outside. The doors closed instantly, and every button went dark except B4. The elevator descended far longer than the building's foundation should allow. In the mirror, Mara's reflection stood facing backward instead of forward. The doors opened onto a decaying copy of the apartment building. Behind them, the B4 button vanished, and the elevator refused every command. Endless concrete corridors stretched far beyond the reach of Mara's flashlight. Apartment doors carried numbers belonging to residents dead for many years. Faint voices behind locked doors repeated names they barely remembered anymore. Some trapped spirits had already lost every feature from their faces. Eli struggled to remember his apartment number and his mother's full name. His missing silver name bracelet remained locked somewhere inside lost property. Mara learned a maintenance key could open stairs leading toward Real B3. The emergency door would seal permanently when every clock reached 3:13. A tall, faceless manager watched them silently from the distant intersection. He carried a black resident ledger and one heavy metal stamp. Each stamped name vanished from photographs, records, and living memories above. The manager never ran, yet every blackout brought him mysteriously closer. Mara and Eli crossed a flooded hallway where footsteps moved beneath water. Empty washing machines began turning together without electricity or human hands. Wet clothes inside briefly formed human shapes before collapsing into silence. One apartment remained prepared for a family that never returned home. A woman resembling Eli's mother waited there beneath warm golden light. Mara noticed the woman cast no reflection across the kitchen window. The false mother repeated one sentence without changing expression or breathing. Mara pulled Eli away before the apartment door sealed behind them. They discovered a hidden surveillance room filled with flickering CRT monitors. Every monitor shows a residents entering elevators during different forgotten decades. One screen displayed Mara standing alone inside the B4 elevator cabin. Another monitor revealed the manager already standing behind the camera room. The lights failed and one metal stamp echoed through complete darkness. Mara's identification card began slowly losing letters beneath the emergency lights. They raced toward lost property as red emergency lights flashed overhead. Lost property contained keys, photographs, toys, shoes, bracelets, and forgotten identities. Thousands of bracelets hung from wires like names waiting for owners. Eli finally found his silver bracelet beneath a faded childhood photograph. When Eli fastened it, painful memories returned across his transparent face. He remembered his mother had died years before his own disappearance. Mara found the maintenance key inside the manager's locked filing drawer. Beside it, the ledger already contained Mara's slowly fading handwritten name. Measured footsteps approached slowly while the manager's shadow crossed every doorway. Mara grabbed the ledger, key, and Eli before the lights failed again. They followed faded maintenance symbols toward a narrow steel emergency staircase. The steel door opened once, accepting only one fully remembered identity. Eli crossed first while Mara's name continued disappearing from the ledger. The door slammed shut before Mara could follow him into safety. Eli pressed his bracelet against the lock and called Mara's name. His voice restored Mara's fading name long enough to reopen the door. The manager appeared behind Mara, raising the heavy stamp above her name. Mara crossed through, and both climbed the stairs as darkness followed. Every emergency light turned black as the manager entered the staircase. At exactly 3:13, the elevator doors opened above the final stair. The manager stamped Mara's name exactly as the elevator doors closed. The elevator rose violently while B4's yellow lights vanished beneath them. The doors opened upstairs, but Eli had vanished without saying goodbye. Only Eli's silver bracelet remained afterward inside Mara's trembling right hand. Mara returned to security and immediately reviewed every recorded camera angle. The footage showed Eli entering the elevator entirely alone during the storm. Another camera showed Mara seated motionless throughout the entire impossible journey. She watched herself remain seated while remembering every corridor beneath B4. One monitor displayed B4 despite no camera ever being installed there. On screen, another Mara stood inside the decaying elevator, holding the ledger. Mara's reflection in the office glass slowly rose while she remained seated. The reflection opened Gray's ledger and found Mara's stamped name inside. Eli briefly appeared behind the reflection, pressing one hand against glass. Eli silently pointed toward the ledger as Mara's reflection raised the stamp. The reflected Mara pressed the stamp above her own fading name. A metal stamp echoed through security as every monitor suddenly failed. When power returned, Mara's reflection had vanished from every nearby surface. Only the forbidden monitor remained, showing B4's elevator doors opening again.